This is our third article in our series about national parks. The title of this one is Early Politics of the Parks. So let's go ahead and preview the text first. We've got two pictures here, a view of Yosemite Valley at dawn and a view of Yosemite Falls across the valley. If you want to see a clearer picture of that one, go ahead and Google it on your own time. Then we've got some subheadings. The first one, from material resource to American ideal. And then to safeguard, educate, and inspire. Here we go. From material resource to American ideal. Land is a valuable resource. It provides wood, game, and other materials that help people care for their families, make a living, and enjoy their leisure time. Up until America's designation of national parks, land was rarely preserved and protected. When land was protected, it was usually done so to safeguard the wealth of landowners. Therefore, it should not come as a surprise that the establishment of national parks came with considerable controversy. Businesses and entrepreneurs viewed the land being designated for preservation from a capitalist perspective. They saw the resources, such as timber, gold, and game, as commodities from which to make money. Other commercial interests viewed the park themselves as an opportunity to establish private businesses to cater to the increasing number of visitors. However, if the land became protected, it would be harder to exploit for their gain. In contrast with the capitalist perspective, conservationists viewed the parks as spaces worth preserving. Their natural wonders were seen as a potential source of enjoyment and American pride. Of course, there were also groups whose perspectives landed somewhere between the two: preserve and utilize. The creation of the National Park Service, NPS, was an attempt to create an organization that would fairly strike a balance between exploitation and conservation. The National Park Service is charged with maintaining the parks. In carrying out these duties, it considers how to best use the land to benefit the greatest number of people. To safeguard, educate, and inspire. After the establishment of Yellowstone National Park in 1872, more parks, monuments, and wildlife refuges followed. However, many of these places were either managed by disconnected government agencies, such as the Department of the Interior, independently managed, or hardly managed at all. Consequently, private businesses such as hotels, ranches, and railroads exploited the resources at the parks for their own commercial gain, often while damaging the landscapes themselves. Due to the lack of oversight, they did not suffer any repercussions. Meanwhile, the increasing mismanagement of the parks caused uncertainty around their long-term health. Conservationists and park enthusiasts became increasingly alarmed at the threats they perceived from businesses associated with the parks. They saw those businesses as primarily interested in making money off the parks rather than saving the parks for the public's enjoyment. One person, in particular, took up the cause to secure the park's future. Stephen Mather was an American millionaire and industrialist. His wealth allowed him to vigorously carry out his conservationist goals. Mather's efforts eventually resulted in him taking position at the Department of the Interior. While in Washington, he lobbied for an organization to manage the parks and uphold the goals of preservation cited in their founding. Finally, in 1916, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Organic Act, establishing the National Park System. Mather became the National Park System's first director. Under his direction, the National Park System began to organize commercial activity in the parks and manage the experience of visiting them, a mission it continues to attempt to fulfill to this day. So we've got some vocabulary here. So as always, go back into the article and reread to see if you can identify how would you define these words. For the sake of time in the video, I'm going to go ahead and give you the definitions and then you can pause and write them down. So capitalist is the first word that we've got there. A capitalist in the article the sentence says, businesses and entrepreneurs viewed the land being designated for preservation from a capitalist perspective. So capitalist is an economic system in which resources and means of production are privately owned and prices, production, and the distribution of goods are determined mainly by competition in a free market. That's a long definition. I'm trying to see if we can shorten it up. Let's look to the Google real quick here. Oops, capitalism. That might be a better definition. An economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. Either one of them would work for me. So, both of them are kind of long. This one's a little shorter. If you're still struggling to understand what capitalist actually means, one of my favorite ways to find definitions that make the most sense, capitalism, capitalist, is capitalism definition for kids or simple, but it's typically referring to, capitalist would be a person typically. In this article, it seems to be talking more about the system. Okay, repercussions is the next one, which I'm sure you guys have heard, but in the article it says, consequently, privately owned private businesses such as hotels, ranches, and railroads exploited the resources at the parks for their own commercial gain, often while damaging the landscapes themselves. Due to the lack of oversight, they did not suffer any repercussions. And I just want to point out, too, exploit is another great vocabulary word. Exploit means that you are kind of abusing something for the money that you can get out of it. So repercussions here is a widespread, indirect, or unexpected effect of something that is said or done. Like when you roll your eyes at your mom and then she yells at you and she sends you to your room without dinner, that would be a repercussion. You might not have been expecting it, but I know you guys are all sweethearts and you wouldn't even dare think about that kind of thing. The last vocabulary word here is lobbied. So in here it says, it's talking about Stephen Mather. While in Washington, he lobbied for an organization to manage the parks and uphold the goals of preservation cited in the founding. So lobbied is to try to influence public officials and members of the legislative body. So, like, if you want money or you want laws or whatever, you would lobby for them. Okay, those are your definitions. Now, as far as the questions are concerned, I am going to get rid of text evidence on a few of them. So the first question under author's purpose. Don't you worry about it. Go ahead and cross that out. I'll make that line big and fat. Okay. Under the second question, support with textual evidence, don't you worry about it. Cross it out. And under your analysis, question 2, don't worry about text evidence. Like, I should be able to tell that you have read and you have understood without you quoting the text directly. So, and then question 4, cross out text evidence. So there you go. You can pause the video if you need to, but go ahead and work on these questions. Have a great rest of your day.